It's October and officially spooky season. So to put you in a boo-tacular mood, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make 3 awesome Halloween cake pop treats. Welcome back, adventurers. Thank you so much for joining me for another fun food adventure. If this is the first time that I'm gracing your screen, my name is Carly and welcome to my channel, Adventures in Yum. Here I share delightfully delicious food videos that I hope will inspire you to go on your very own food adventures. I share recipes for sweet treats and some savory eats, food reviews, and oh yes, cocktails too. If that sounds awesome to you, please consider subscribing. Today is all about cake pop related treats. Cake pops are super easy to make. All you need is some cake and buttercream or ganache. In this video, I'm sharing 3 different ways to use cake pop dough. The first is a basic cake pop. The next one is a cakesicle, which is basically a cake pop in the shape of a popsicle. And then the third one is using cake pop dough to make a cake roll wreath. Do you love cake pops? Let me know in the comments below. First, let's make some easy cake pops. First, we're going to make the cake pop dough. I don't typically measure out my cake scraps and buttercream. However, a good rule of thumb to follow is for every 2 cups of cake scraps, add a 1/4 cup of buttercream. The important thing is to look for a good consistency like what you see here. If your cake pop dough is too soft, add more cake. And vice versa, if it's too firm, add more buttercream or ganache. You're looking for the dough to be a nice consistency that when pressed together will hold its shape. Once your dough is ready, use a medium-sized cookie scoop to scoop out balls of cake pop dough. After you're done scooping, roll the cake pop scoops into balls and place them on a parchment paper-lined baking sheet. Next, melt some candy melts in the microwave. Dip the tip of a small treat stick into the candy melts and then insert it into a cake ball. I decided to do some plain cake balls, so I left about half of the cake pops without treat sticks. Once you're done, place them in the refrigerator to firm up for at least a few hours or overnight. For the decorations, we're going to melt some orange candy melts and pink candy melts in separate bowls. Heat the candy melts in the microwave for 15 to 30 second increments at a time and stir in between. Once they are completely melted, add in small increments of vegetable oil, about 1 to 2 teaspoons at a time, until the candy melts run smoothly off the spoon, as you see here. You can either dip the cake pops into a plain color, or you can melt some black candy melts as well, thin them out with a little bit of vegetable oil, and then drizzle some of the black candy melts over the top of one of the candy melt colors. Take a cake tester or a butter knife and then lightly swirl the candy melts to make a marbled pattern. Take a cake pop and dip it into the candy melts. Make sure that it gets completely coated before pulling the cake pop out and gently spinning it as you do so to get a cool swirl look to your cake pops. Add another light drizzle of black candy melts, marble it, and dip your next cake pop. Continue this pattern until you finish your cake pops. If you want to add some fun Halloween sprinkles, make sure to do so before the candy melts harden. For the cake balls, you can use a cake tester to dip them into the candy melts. Another easy decoration option for both the cake pops and cake balls is to dip them in one color of candy melt and then drizzle another color over the top, like I'm doing here. For some of these cake balls, I also decided to top them off with a mini buttercream black rose. I'll show you how to pipe larger buttercream roses later in this video. And that's all you need to make some easy and super cute Halloween cake pops and cake balls. Second, we're making adorable cakesicles. Take your cakesicle molds and place them on a piece of parchment paper. Melt some dark chocolate candy melts in short increments of 15 to 30 seconds in the microwave and make sure to mix in between each heating. Unlike the cake pops, we're not going to thin the candy melts for this with vegetable oil. We want this chocolate to be nice and thick so that the cakesicles come out of the molds easier and don't break. Once the chocolate is completely smooth, spoon some into the cakesicle molds and then use the back of a spoon to spread the chocolate. Make sure to cover all the sides and the bottom of each well of the mold. Gently tap the mold on the counter and remove any air bubbles. Then, insert the popsicle stick while the chocolate is still in its melted form. If you insert it later when it's hardened, it will crack the chocolate. Once your molds are completely ready to go, place them in the refrigerator for about 5 minutes or until the chocolate shell is completely set. While the shell is hardened, mix up your cake pop dough and set it aside. Once all of the chocolate has hardened, add a little bit of your cake pop dough, almost filling the shell, but make sure to leave some room at the top. Add melted chocolate to cover the tops of the cake pop dough. Use either an offset spatula or a cake scraper to remove excess chocolate and smooth out what will be the bottom of your cakesicle. Set the cakesicles in the refrigerator or freezer for at least a few hours or overnight. Then, carefully remove them from the molds. Now comes the fun part, let's decorate. You can make little characters, like my mummy friend here, or do a variety of candy melt, drizzle, and sprinkle combinations. I love the adorable sprinkle sets offered by Wilton this year, so I decided to make a variety of fun combinations. And there you have some awesome Halloween cakesicles. For the third and final Halloween treat, we're using some cake pop dough to make a cake roll wreath. For this cake roll wreath, I used 8 cups of cake scraps and 1 cup of buttercream to make my cake pop dough. After mixing your dough, lay a long piece of parchment paper on your work surface. Place the cake pop dough on the parchment paper and then place another long piece of parchment paper over the top of the cake pop dough. Use a rolling pin to flatten the cake mixture into a large rectangle shape about 1/4 inch thick. Next, remove the parchment paper and then use a paring knife to trim the sides and make an even rectangle shape. Now, take at least 2 cups of filling and gently spread it into an even layer across the entire rectangle. The filling I decided to use was a chocolate espresso ganache with a thin layer of caramel and a sprinkle of salt. Now, take one of the long edges and fold it about 1/2 to 1 inch of it. Then, use the parchment paper to help roll it into a cake roll. Once it's completely rolled, carefully start to shape the cake roll into a circle. If it's too soft and easily starting to crack, place it onto a sheet pan and into the freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes to firm up. Then, continue to shape it into a circle. If there are any cracks in the cake pop dough, simply use some of your leftover cake pop dough to cover them. Once the circle has been shaped, place it back in the freezer for another 1 to 2 hours to completely firm up. Next, add a little buttercream to a cake board in a circle shape. This will help adhere the cake roll to the cake board so that it cannot slide around. Take the cake roll and place it on the cake board. Place your cake roll in the refrigerator until you're ready to decorate. Now, let's make some buttercream roses. Just like the black roses in my Halloween meringue video, we're going to use a flour nail and parchment paper squares. Make sure to have a parchment-lined baking sheet ready so that you have a place to put all of your flowers. To pipe a rose, make a mound of buttercream in the middle. You can use a different piping tip, but I personally like to use the same tip, a Wilton tip 103, because I can pipe roses faster that way. You're going to hold your petal tip with a large end aimed at the flour nail, and with the pointed end of the piping tip facing away from you, pipe 3 petals around the top of the mound. Now pipe 5 to 6 petals with the top of the tip pointing vertically toward the ceiling. And finally, with the pointed end of the tip facing a little more toward you, pipe approximately 7 to 8 petals. Carefully remove the parchment paper square from the flour nail and place it onto the parchment paper lined baking sheet. Once you have all of your buttercream roses piped, place this sheet tray in the freezer for at least 30 minutes to an hour. Now, let's decorate. You can add an optional thin layer of buttercream, as I did here, or you can simply add little dots of buttercream to adhere your flowers to the cake roll, like I also did here. Arrange your roses however you wish. This is your wreath cake, so customize it however you like. I decided to also add some pink roses because it's very popular right now to add in some brighter colors like pink to the traditional mix of Halloween colors. Once you have all of your buttercream roses placed on the cake roll, pipe black buttercream to fill the blank spots using a combination of piping tips like Wilton 1M and 2D to pipe rosettes and smaller tips like Wilton 21 and 18 to fill the spaces in between the roses. Once your cake roll wreath is completely covered in buttercream roses and rosettes, add some cute sprinkles and/or candy decorations. I made these skeleton pieces from a Wilton silicone candy mold and candy melts. Check out my Halloween dirt sheet cake video to see how easy it is to make these kind of decorations. And voila, you now have an incredible cake roll wreath that will be the perfect centerpiece to any Halloween gathering. Well, post-pandemic gathering, that is. Make sure to cut this cake roll when it's cold for a nice clean slice. And look at that spiral, so cool. These Halloween cake pop treats are super cute and so easy to make. They are fantastic treats to put you in a spooky good mood. You can find all these creepy good treats on my website, adventuresnyam.net. Links are in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time for another frightfully good video.